guys, and a happy new year! I can't believe it's already 2020. The year seems to have flown by. So I'm just going to very quickly take you through my reading goals for 2020 and obviously my channel goals as well. The channel goals are super simple. I want to release a video once a week. Actually, what I said is to release 52 YouTube videos, so I'm going to try and make sure that's once a week, but you know, there's a kind of flexibility there so I can catch up if I need to. A lot of my goals are like that. For example, one of my reading goals is to read a book in Swedish, well, to read 12 books in Swedish, or to read one in a month, you see? But if I miss a month or I really can't be bothered, I've always got the opportunity to catch up in the next month. So my reading goals, like the specific books that I want to read, are split into 3 categories. The first one is 2019 releases, the second one is 2020 releases, and then the third one is Terry Pratchett. Terry Pratchett is super simple. I want to read the first 20 books of his Discworld series because I've read a couple here and there, but I've never read them in the correct order, and also, you know, I want to commemorate his memory and get to know him a bit more. So if you don't know who Terry Pratchett is, and you probably do even if you don't remember hearing his name before, he was the author of the famous Discworld series, which are kind of satirical, humorous fantasy books, kind of like weird takes on the genre, weird takes on tropes. The first book is about a chest with, I think, 16 pairs of legs from what I remember, that can run away from the heroes that are trying to loot it, things like that. So it's very much like a D&D campaign if the GM, the Game Master, or the Dungeon Master, the DM, was high. But I'm really looking forward to digging back into his work. He also co-wrote Good Omens with Neil Gaiman, so that will give you an idea of the kind of humour, satire, kind of like the sarcasm that will be involved in my reading journey. And then the 19 books from 2019. I know pretty much what all of these books are about, where there's the 2020 ones, I might have to stop filming it and go and bone up. These books are from a spread of categories, but most of them are from science fiction or fantasy. As you know, that's how I prefer to read. There are others, of course. Let's go. So the first one is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. Obviously, I still have to read a lot of her other books, but this one is a kind of more contemporary. It's about a young man / woman, I don't know, a young person who survives, at 20, survives a mass murder. She's the only survivor, or he, don't know. I'm going to pretend it's a woman. If it's a man, I'm sorry. Because of this, or maybe unrelated, we don't know, while they're in the hospital, they get a scholarship to one of the most prestigious universities. They don't know why they're there, except that they're supposed to spy on some of the elites of the future while they're there. So it's very tense. A lot of people have said it was absolutely fantastic, so I'm really looking forward to reading that. The second book from the 2019 releases is The Starless Sea, and this is by Erin Morgenstern. This book is about a man who is reading a book in the university library and discovers a story from his childhood is written in there. Unfortunately for him, the book was written before he was born, so it's kind of impossible, even though it's definitely what happened to him as a child. And so he wants to dig into that mystery, and through symbols on the cover and puzzles and things like that, he's going to end up at a starless sea, I guess. Then we have The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. Now, you will have probably heard of this if you're on booktube. This was a bright orange book, and it is a kind of George R.R. Martin style fantasy following several characters from different parts of the continent that this story is about. You have the dragon riders of the East, and you have the West, which fear dragons and don't worship or ride them. And there's a lot of conflict and stuff, and that's all I know, other than that this book is huge, even bigger than my large print middle game, and I have it on Kindle and in hardback in the library, so probably the Kindle because my back is weak. After that we have Black Leopard Red Wolf by Marlon James. This is the story about a missing young boy. There's a couple of people who want to find him, and there's some people who do not want him found, and so the book's about why people might not want to find him and what's going on with that. Then we have Middle Game by Shannon Maguire. Middle Game is about 2 twins, one of them who is fantastic at languages and the other one who's fantastic at numbers, and they were made by a man who wants to become a god through them. So it's kind of Frankenstein-y from what I can tell. Very dark, very interesting. Then we have Magic for Liars by Sarah Gailey. Magic for Liars is about, I think, a street magician, so someone who can do magic tricks, going to a school after a murder to investigate the murder maybe, but they can't do real magic, so they have to pretend. using their magical tricks. Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. This is about the son of the President of the United States going on a state visit to England, meeting the Prince of England, and kind of like a enemies to lovers type situation, I believe. Aisha at Last by Uzma Yalaluddin. This is the story of a young woman who is kind of a more liberal Muslim, who she falls in love with a conservative man who is very not into her style of Islam, and finds out that he is engaged to her cousin, and there might be something a bit weird about his family. The Friend Zone by Abby Jimenez is about a woman who has who's about to undergo a life-saving operation, I think, which will render her infertile, falling in love with the best man at her friend's wedding, who really wants a large family, and it's all about whether or not they can make that work. Recursion by Blake Crouch is about this kind of disease that has infected a city, and it's kind of implanting fake memories, from what I can tell from the blurb, and in the course of investigating this, the cop will start to realise that there might be something a little bit more fishy about it. How many is that? 10. 9 more to go. Ironically, the next one is called Gideon the Ninth by Tasmin Moyer. All I know about this one is that Gideon does not want to die and end up eternally enslaved to her masters, so she is trying to escape. The Deep by River Solomon is about a community underwater who were made from the pregnant African women who were being kind of transported for the slave industry, and they were chucked overboard for whatever reason, and their babies were born underwater. And then, obviously, those memories are super painful, so the community has this thing where they don't have to remember. Only one person is charged with remembering the community's history, and that must be a very painful job, and also there's a mystery that she needs to solve. The Test by Sylvain Neuvel. I think I've read other books by Sylvain Neuvel, or I can't remember them right now. The Test is about a citizenship exam. There are 25 multi-choice questions which the main character has to answer in order to become a British citizen, and something goes horribly wrong during the test, and then he needs to decide the fate of someone, I think. The Institute by Stephen King is kind of a magical school story, but the gifted child's family is brutally murdered, and he's trapped in this horrific institute where if you do well, you get to eat. Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chbosky, don't know. Imaginary Friend is about a young boy who goes missing in the woods, and when he comes back, there's something not quite right about him and his imaginary friend. The Girl in Red by Christina Henry. I don't know much about this. It is a Red Riding Hood retelling. It is horror. It is very dark from what I have heard and vaguely remember of all of Christina Henry's works, and so I'm really interested. My Sister, the Serial Killer. A Winken Braithwaite is about a nurse whose sister is a serial killer. All of her boyfriends die unexpectedly. The nurse helps the sister cover up these murders, but then the sister falls in love with the nurse's crush, and there's a lot of conflict there. The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware is another kind of thriller. This is about a young woman who was housekeeper slash babysitter slash nursemaid, I guess, for a baby. The baby dies, and she is accused of the murder, but she knows she didn't do it, which means the murderer is still out there. And finally, we have Once Upon a River by Diane Setterfield. Ooh. Diane Setterfield's Once Upon a River is a story about a young girl who is brought up half drowned from a river, and 3 different families try and claim her as their own. I don't know whether this is historical fiction or fantasy, to be honest, but it sounds really good, so I want to read it. I also went through and marked all of the ones that the library currently has, and then I will do that again when I run out of those to make sure that I'm not buying books that I could get for free from the library. This is really important to me. I'll also do the same for Kindle Unlimited if any of these are on Kindle Unlimited, although I highly doubt it. In fact, I think I looked and none of them were. But those are all of the 2019 releases that I want to read. Before we launch into the 2020 releases though, I do just want to go quickly through my writing goals. And my writing goals are just is a very big exaggeration. Based on the success of last year's NaNoWriMo, I really want to write 3 whole books this year and finish editing the book that I finished in NaNoWriMo, and that is a lot. So I'm not sure how well that will go. On top of that, I want to write 52 short stories. Having like decisive endings to a short story is really hard for me. I usually stretch them. It's even in fanfic, I'll write something and I'll think, oh, this would be three chapters, and then it turns into like 12 chapters, and that's ridiculous. So it is my goal to write 52 short stories, either on Reddit or in my own personal collections or whatever it is, and just like get into the habit of writing short stories, because I think A lot of science fiction and fantasy authors are discovered through their short stories and through, you know, winning prizes or publishing in magazines, which you can't do if you're bad at short stories. So me and Charles Dickens, but I'm gonna practice. So I chose 18 releases from 2020 that I definitely want to read, and I've left 2 for chance in case, you know, one of my favourite authors spontaneously announces that they're going to release something. J.R.R. Martin's The Winds of Winter is not on here. I'm still torn on whether I want to read that because I'm not that convinced it's going to come out this year. And also, since I know the ending now, I'm less inclined to read the series. But anyway, the first one is The Empire of Gold. This obviously follows on from the City of Brass and the City of Copper and the Kingdom of... City of Brass and the Kingdom of Copper. These are fantasies based in a city inhabited by jinn, different types of jinn, which causes racial conflicts and things like that. And the first book is about a young woman who suddenly appears with the ability to speak a language that she really shouldn't be able to speak. Then we have Ruin Song by Julia Ember. This book is about a land where magic is sung, and she's asked or forced by the nobility to torture, or by the rulers, sorry, to torture nobility who have done something wrong. But then she meets one of her childhood friends who is actually a member of the resistance, and she's forced to decide whether she's going to torture her or not. The Shadows Between Us by Trisha Levenseller is about a young woman who wants to marry and then betray the Shadow King, who has mysterious magical powers that no one understands. She wants to take his kingdom for herself. Unfortunately, she's not the only one trying to kill the king, and so she is forced to also save his life so that he can survive long enough to wed her. The Midnight Lie by Marie Rotosky is about this kind of society where the lower classes are not allowed to have pleasure, so they're not allowed to eat sweets, and they're certainly not allowed to do magic. One of the poor orphans of the city, however, is able to do magic, and she can only train her magic if she trains with a man who tells her not to trust him. The Gilded Ones by Namina Fauna is about a young woman whose blood runs gold, the colour of impurity, and so she's going to be outcast from her tribe and forced to use her unnatural intuition to survive the wilds of an Africa-like inspired fantasy world. Too many words. Too many words. I chose too many words. Then we have The Foul Twins by Ian Colfer. I've actually never read an Ian Colfer, that's a lie. I've read a lot of Ian Colfer's works when I was a kid, and so I'm very excited to get back into the world. This is about the 2 younger children, or siblings I think, of the original Artemis Fowl, and it should be fun. Don't Read the Comments by Eric Smith is a rom-com-esque book, or chicklit I guess, set between a famous streamer and one of her fans who happens to end up on the same planet as she is, but obviously with them maybe flirting and getting to know each other, the fans are very angry and there is a lot of trolling. Then we have The Dreamland by Nancy Belayo. I think this is the first non-fantasy on the 2020 releases list. This is about a rich heiress who is frustrated by her controlling family, and she goes to this big partyland thing, fair I guess, that's set up. She falls in love with a commoner, which her family would definitely disapprove of, and then someone dies. Don't know who yet. Gonna have to find out. Then we have The Borgia Confessions by Alyssa Palombo, which I believe is a fictional retelling of a non-fictional event. This follows the family to popes, I think. Okay, so yes, this is about the Pope, or the popes and the Pope's son, who is an archbishop, I believe, in the church, and kind of like their family is super Slytherin, super ambitious, and there's a young woman involved who comes from the countryside where she knows that the power and unchecked ambition of great men can ruin the lives of those around them, but she's also falling in love with one of them. Then we have Codename Helene by Ariel Lauhon. This is another fictional retelling of real life, and this is about a spy who, I think she was American or Australian, can't remember, but she ends up going to Paris to fight the Nazis as part of the resistance, and she has to do it again and again as the Nazis draw closer to her real identity, and she's, you know, in danger. Blood Countess by Lana Popovic is a YA novel based on Dracula, so it's a Dracula retelling, I think. So the scullery maid is kind of like working in the castle, and the lady or the countess takes an unnatural interest in her and kind of like is torturing her, I think, or other people. Oh yes, so she's grooming her and kind of like pushing away her family and friends. Then we have Spellhacker by M.K. England. This is about a land where magic used to be plentiful but is now kind of a rare resource bottled up by the rich, when some kids run a highly illegal siphoning gig on the side and end up kind of like their last heist is much more complicated than they expected. The Lost Book of Adana Moreau by Michael Zapeta is a book within a book. The author inside the book is writing a sequel to a very popular sci-fi fiction when she dies, and she and her son have destroyed the sequel, so there's something secretive about that. The main character is clearing out her granddad's home when she finds the lost manuscript, I think is the plot. But the blurb is very confusing, so I'm hoping that I got it right for you, and if I didn't, just pop a comment down below and explain the plot to me, because clearly I don't get it. But I really want to read it. I want to be cool. I think that ship sailed a long time ago. Then we have The Ancestor by Danielle Trussoni. Right, so this is about a woman who is living, I think, in New York. It doesn't really matter. She gets a letter that tells her that she's inherited a fortune and a title, and she's like obviously ecstatic, because who wouldn't be as long as it wasn't from a Nigerian prince. And then she goes and something's very fishy about the fortune. The Mercies by Kieran... I can't remember the name from when I look here to here. By Kieran Millward Hargrave is set in Norway in 1617, and there's a big storm. It kills off all of the men on the island, and 2 of the women are accused of witchcraft. If I Never Met You by Mary McFarlane. If you've been watching this channel for a while, you'll know that I first read a Mary McFarlane... I can't remember how to say her name. But I first read a McFarlane novel last year and I absolutely loved it. I read Who's That Girl, which was about a young woman who sort of accidentally, not really accidentally, kisses someone who's been flirting for her for a while, just after his wedding that he was married in, that he was the groom of. It doesn't go well for her. She works with both him and his newlywed wife, and so her manager ships her off to Bristol to live with her dad and kind of like do some reporting up there while the smoke blows over. It's awesome. So I don't want to know what If I Never Met You is about, because I think I really enjoyed the first McFarlane novel and I just kind of want to go into this one blind. Then we have My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell, and what I remember from this is that this young woman's old Latin teacher is arrested for child endangerment, having sex with children, and she is forced to use that to look back at their relationship and see that maybe he was grooming her and it wasn't necessarily the fling, the special relationship that she thought it was. Finally, of the 18, we have The Obsidian Tower by Melissa Caruso. Melissa Caruso is an absolutely amazing author. You should definitely check out her writing, and if you don't want to, then you should check out her Twitter. She does a lot of writing crash threads where she talks about the process of writing, how she got to where she is now, how many failures she had, what editing is like, what publishing is like. You should definitely check her out. But The Obsidian Tower is set in the future from the Sword and Fire series, which began with The Tethered Mage. This is a world where magic is born into random bloodlines and your eyes give away your power. The one country that we followed in The Tethered Mage used to tether the mages, so they couldn't do magic without permission from their respective jailers. And in this one, I believe we're following a different country where the children are allowed to do magic whenever they want and are in charge of their regions because they are powerful. So that covers it. I think that is the 59 books that I have agreed to, well 57 I guess, agreed to read or set myself the target of reading in 2020. I am really excited about nearly all of these books. I mean, no, all of them. No, I lied, all of them. I love, as you know, reading a wide variety of fiction, so having a wide variety of books ready and raring to go and already picked out is so exciting for me. It is a bit different to how I normally do it, so normally I don't have goals, I just stick everything on my TBR and then pick randomly from the last like 50, whichever suits my mood. But having this goal is going to be so interesting, especially the Terry Pratchett one. I'm just really excited about the new year. So if you have any ideas for the last 2 books in my 2020 releases, please pop them down below. Otherwise, I will see you next week for my January TBR. I hope you guys have had an amazing 2019 and are racing into 2020 for happiness and success and joy. Whatever it is that you are searching for, I hope you found it. Let me know if you have any resolutions similar to mine. I have a lot of resolutions, as I'm sure you can imagine. And I will see you next time.